and welcome to the G&G podcast. I'm Gabe.
And I'm Gato. And
and I'm Connor. Sorry.
Well, I think we normally say, and today we're joined by or with.
Oh yeah,
from.
It's been a while since I've had you, so I'm kind of rusty on that.
Yeah, I was waiting for an introduction of some sort, but my bad.
Sorry, no, that's my bad.
It's all good.
Well, I will do it
It's
again.
all
We are joined
good.
again, everybody, by Connor from the Cinema Fan on Instagram. He will be joining us as we talk about the season finale of Loki. What did you guys think of it?
Connor, why don't you go first?
Yes.
I'll go first. Okay. It's a lot to take in, is all I got to say about that final episode. It is definitely not the ending I expected. It's definitely not. I mean, if you would have given me 1,000 guesses on the first episode, or even the third episode of this show, I wouldn't have told you how the show it was going to have this kind of ending. And so, I thought it was great. It's definitely my favorite of these MCU TV shows so far. It's just crazy. It's just a lot to take in. It's both like very complicated, but also at the same time very simplistic. You know, with all the multiverse and like all the different timelines, stuff like that. It's very confusing, but at the same time, it's a pretty like I guess cut and dry story of with Loki, doing his schemes again with what's her name?
Sylvie?
The female Loki with
Sylvie.
Yeah.
Sylvie. And so it's crazy because at the same time it's easy to follow, but at the same time it's really kind of like, where are they going with this? How is this gonna work out? It's just a lot of different things going on at once, and so I'm excited to see where this whole thing goes. Honestly, I'm just as confused as I was the first episode, though.
I did not expect them to do a second season. I was thinking season 1, this was going to be complete. That was like the pattern we had with Falcon and WandaVision, and all of a sudden you get, it's like even official where it's not even like in the air. They have that stamp secret ending where it says season 2 coming. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah, that really took me by surprise. I was expecting something else. I really was craving a hint at the upcoming movies. Because obviously this is like a whole setup for the upcoming movies, right?
Yeah,
but,
gotta be.
Yeah. Multiverse of
you're
madness.
Right. It's so simple yet so complex. And like I knew that certain things needed to happen, but they did not happen the way I thought they were gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was actually in itself a nice surprise, is to see something that I actually didn't expect. I expected it to be a little more action-packed. I mean, with getting answers, but the pacing was good though. Like, I'm not complaining. It's not what I expected, and it was a good surprise.
There was a lot of exposition, I will say.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, I guess there was a lot of.
I mean, I would agree that there's a lot of exposition, but like going off what you just said, Gato, about not a whole lot of action. I was surprised at how, like, I was probably more engaged in that ending conversation than I was in even the more action-packed parts of Loki. Like, yeah, it was exposition and they kind of need to go through it, but I also didn't feel like it was painful exposition. I didn't feel like they were like spoon feeding me stuff. I thought the actor who plays the guy who's
he who remains.
Well, I mean, yes.
Do you know his name?
So he's Khan the Conqueror.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought the actor was awesome, and I thought even though he was explaining things and it was exposition, I thought that he was like a very gripping actor. He was a really good, he delivered lines very awesome. Like, I thought he was a great villain. I don't know if I don't know what you call him. He is a villain, but
well, I think so that's the funny thing is, like, so there was a lot of hints at Khan the Conqueror. Kong the. Sorry, I'm gonna butcher that name because it's hard to say, but there was a lot of hints at him being the bad guy, and then we get this guy who's kind of like hey, what's up, guys? Like, ha ha ha, I'm having a good time. I'm just trying to be I'm just trying to do my job, right? And like, in a sense, I felt like it was a little similar to the Mandarin, where like the Mandarin, he's supposed to be this big bad, and
Oh,
he's just
okay.
an actor, and so it's actually a person behind the curtains. Now with the Iron Man movie, I feel like that was a little more jarring. Although I do appreciate the movie, it was very jarring for me to experience that. With this one, it wasn't like that. It was actually, again, it was a pleasant surprise for me. I was just so intrigued by it, and you're right with the exposition when he's talking about like all the different variants and stuff like that, and he's like, well, there's a lot of versions of me, and some of them were not as good. Like I feel like that was, I think if I had the right amount of exposition with him explaining it and just saying like, hey, I mean, I'm just telling you how it is, and now you make the choices, which was also very interesting.
Very.
Like letting them have the choice after telling them that they didn't have the choice. That moment where he feels like he hears a rumble and he's like, that's it, we just crossed the threshold and I don't know what's gonna happen. I was just like, and it was just cool. It was cool. And it's funny because at that moment, you have Loki and Sylvie coming in together and actually making a good duo to get to the point where they get. But as soon as they cross that, they're like no longer in sync. Now they're like they've created this like double path coming in. And it was interesting to see her say like, why don't we see the same thing now?
Yeah, no, that was
And that was a good way of saying like, we're no longer like, this is actually unwritten, and now we have different goals.
I did like
And
that. That was a good like distinguishing, because of the, even though they are the same and they're variants of each other, they were still like the variation, I guess you could say, of each other.
And I really liked, going on top of that, I liked how Loki was like, our problem is you can't trust anyone and I can't be trusted. I thought that was like a perfect kind of, like, I guess you could say it's an oversimplification of the characters, but I thought it was a good like description of their dynamic. You know, they're Loki's, one can't trust anyone because he's been betrayed her whole life, and one just spends his whole life betraying people. So I thought that was a cool little thing of kind of explaining why they didn't see eye to eye and why there was a difference between the two, and how they, even though they're the same person, they have differences. I thought that was a neat little, like you said, distinguishing moment for the show.
so before you, I mean, at the beginning of the episode or before the episode, whatever, what did you guys think was going to happen? Like, what was your top guess for the season finale?
So with me, and this is going back to what we said earlier about how we were surprised about it being the second season. I was a little disappointed at, I mean, episode 5, because I was like, man, they have a very short amount of time to cover a lot of ground. I feel like, because I was like, man, if they are expecting to do something that's kind of like important, it's kind of weird that they're leaving it all to one last episode, like kind of jamming everything in, explaining
Like Lost.
everything. Because yeah, kind of, yeah, exactly. And so I guess what I was expecting is, um, like you said, Gato, I was expecting a little bit bigger bad guy than what was shown. Like I was expecting them to go, and that I knew it wasn't going to be what they thought, but I didn't know. They still caught me by surprise. Like I was still kind of expecting where the show was going. I thought, okay, obviously this time person isn't going to be who we think it is. But then it was like it still surprised me, and I like what you mentioned, comparing it to Iron Man 3, because I remember that guy like ruined the movie for me. Like Iron Man 3, I thought, man, this villain is awesome. They build him up, and then he ends up being like a comedic relief joke.
Yeah.
And the difference with this one is that he's not like, I'm expecting like a Thanos, you know, when they approach the time god, the con guy, and it ends up being just a dude who's literally just kind of like, he's charismatic, but he's also kind of evil, and he's, so I just, I liked it a lot, but it also was still surprising, even though I was kind of expecting it to be something that they were trying to wizard guy behind the curtain type of thing. But it still surprised me of who it was. I thought it was gonna be a big bad guy or something like that. But
Yeah.
Did you think they were gonna like do like some sort of battle there, or did you think it was gonna be like a boom reveal and it's just kind of like, oh no, this is a bigger problem than we thought, and it just like ends? But again, with the hint towards the upcoming movies, because that's what I was expecting.
No, I agree. I thought it wasn't going to get resolved. I didn't think anything was going to get resolved. I thought it was maybe going to lead into maybe like whatever, like how WandaVision kind of leads into stuff too, and with realities. And then we know we have Spider-Man coming out, and we don't know what to expect with that. And we have Doctor Strange multiverse thing coming out. So I agree. I thought that too. I didn't think it was going to get resolved. I honestly thought because Loki is dead in the actual universe, I thought that somehow the show was going to end where like Sylvie was going to be like the new Loki in the next movies. Like I thought that this was going to be kind of Loki's final swan song, and he was going to die at the end of this. And so I was actually like, I was thinking that they were going to kill him off some way, but then when they killed him off in episode like 4, that's when I was like, okay, so they're not going to do it because there's no way they're killing off Loki so anticlimactically.
I know.
Where he's like just talking, he gets evaporated, and then right at the ending scene, you see him, and there's all the different Lokis. So that's when I was like, okay, so I don't think they're going to kill off Loki this time, because I thought they were for sure going to do that.
I thought it was going to be like a
when
replace.
I first started the show, I thought for sure Loki's story was ending. I thought by Love and Thunder, he's not going to be in it. It's going to be either Sylvie or someone's going to take his place. This is going to just explain what happened to Loki, why he was gone, and while also leading into multiverse. But now I don't know what's going on. Now I have no idea, because I didn't know there was going to be a season 2. I was expecting it to conclude here. So now I have no idea, because now it's going to be a whole nother season, and who knows?
Well, okay, there was a moment where I thought maybe they are introducing the new Loki variant to say goodbye to the actor Tom Hiddleston as Loki, and then start going with like all the new characters, the new actors that are coming in, because obviously we've said goodbye to
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, I guess this is a good way to do that. But then you're right, after episode 4 where he gets pruned, and then he's like still alive and there's more variants, I honestly thought, I don't think they're actually gonna kill him off, because they've killed him off so many times,
and he talked about it too.
If they were to do it one more time, I feel like it's too much. I'm like, I don't think they should. I think it's just, you're going through all these arcs over and over again. I'm like, it makes no sense. So I did get to a point where I'm like, I don't think they're gonna kill him. I think they're gonna bring him back somehow. And my hope was that there's a big bad and he gets back. I don't know to which timeline. I don't know if he would go back to 2012 because that's where he left off, or if he would go back to like the current times, and then just kind of like surprise everybody, like, oh, I'm not the same Loki, but here I am, and I'm gonna help you because there's this big bad that's way worse than Thanos. And maybe Sylvie's there too. But now, you're right. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there's definitely, the multiverse is there. It's visually there. And that was also a really cool scene. Yeah. Seeing all the branches go off. I felt like it looked like a brain, like neurons in a brain.
Yeah.
Like that. Yep, that's what I saw too.
That's the vibes that I got. I'm like, that is crazy. That's insane. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, so I can see how now we can get all these things crossed over. So I'm excited for Spider-Man. I'm excited to see what they bring. I'm excited for Doctor Strange. What is it? Madness,
Multiverse of Madness.
We got Ant-Man, Quantumania.
Yeah. Seriously, we got all this stuff coming out.
So many multiverse type stuff.
They're all like multiverse related. So I'm like, okay, so this is what makes my head hurt.
My question is, how are they going to do? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, how do you fix it?
Yeah, no, exactly. Because that's kind of where my gripe was with the show, is that I really like Loki, but at the same time, I want to be like, how are they going to like fix this stuff? Because like this is too complicated, and I feel like they're kind of like, I was also like, you're telling me that no one in the entire history of the TVA has ever thought like, oh, like what's it, who are the timekeepers, like and stuff like that. So like a lot of it where I was like, some of this seems a little bit too like convenient for something that's just so complex. And so now that they have a season 2, that makes it a little bit better. Where I'm like, okay, there's a lot more to this. Because like I said, I was a little disappointed with season episode 5 because I was like, how's this show going to end? They have all these complicated things that are like universe changing stuff, and I felt like they were just kind of like glossing over things. But now that I know there's a season 2, that means there's a lot more time for them to kind of circle back and kind of expand this universe or expand the problems that arise from doing so many different timelines. And so anyway,
Yeah, I was even thinking during the monologue or the exposition scene, I was saying, how are they going to explain all this in the movies?
yeah,
Because there's going to be people that won't watch the show, and they're going to watch the movie and be like, oh yeah, some guy messed up the multiverse. And that's without the whole exposition thing, you know?
Do you think it'll be like kind of like I mean, in order to watch Avengers, you kind of have to have a basic understanding of all the movies. Like you have to have that knowledge of it, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's going to be the same for the upcoming movies. It's like if you really want to understand the deep meaning to it, you'll have to watch the series. And if you don't want it, maybe they do like small mentions where you have like a very mild understanding, like, okay, well, I guess he said something about something that happened, and I guess that makes sense as to why things are happening. But unless you watch the shows, you won't have that full understanding of what's happening next.
I think that was part of their plan, though, from a business standpoint. Let's have them watch the show, get the subscription so they can catch up or whatever.
Well, did you see that they like apparently switched like the end scene in WandaVision?
What?
Did any of you hear that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, but I forgot what was the reason again, because I remember hearing that. I just remember I don't remember the reason why they changed it.
Apparently Doctor Strange was actually supposed to have a cameo in the show.
Oh wow.
If I remember correctly, I think he was supposed to play the Doctor, like in that one scene, like where she's like getting it's the Nexus commercial, like Nexus pills, and she goes to get the medicine, and it's supposed to be Doctor Strange, but then they took it out. So they took away his character from the show, but I think it was like 2 weeks ago or something like that. They added a shape. I haven't confirmed this. Don't trust me, but I saw a video where there's like a shape that looks like Doctor Strange that is floating down the mountains.
What? Okay.
Like by the cabin where Wanda is. And so it's kind of like, okay, so he's coming to see her or something like that. You know, it's like,
I wonder if that's because of COVID messing up scheduling, where
probably,
Multiverse of Madness was supposed to be out, or WandaVision was supposed to be out like a long time ago. And so maybe COVID messed up stuff where they're like, oh, this cameo won't make sense anymore. I don't know. Maybe they changed.
It could be. But it's funny because it's making people go back to watch it. So they're bringing people back.
Of course, yeah. Now everyone's going back to see all the changes. That's kind of unfair. I think that's a little unfair of Disney to be able to go back and change things in shows that people have already watched.
I know.
Like a little.
How are we supposed to know?
Because I want to be like that, because that's exactly what's going to happen every single time someone changes one thing. Now everyone's going to think there's thousands of changes in the show, and they're going to rewatch it, and that's just mean almost.
It makes me think of all the different releases of the original Star Wars trilogy.
I know. Oh my gosh.
There's like 5 or 6 different versions of it now. It's kind of like, bruh, like I don't want to.
And they're all by George Lucas. Majority of them are by George Lucas.
Yeah. So it looks like Disney learned something from Lucasfilms.
Yeah, boy, oh boy.
Oh man, yeah, I just read that. I read that rumor. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's interesting, but it's like you said. It's odd because I really liked Loki. I liked it more than the last 2 shows. And it is interesting because it's so complicated, and I feel like it's such a kind of universe changing stuff, or like all the past movies, and they're throwing so many new concepts at you, it is a little worrisome though sometimes when you're just like, are they just gonna like gloss over stuff?
Yeah.
Because
Nah,
like
I
I
do
have
worry
all these
about
high
that.
hopes, like we're talking about, like is this leading to multiverse madness? Is this leading to this, that, whatnot? But it's like I hope they don't like jump the shark or end up kind of like treading water and tell people and kind of like giving lazy answers to things because what
Just to
I'm trying
trying
to
to
say
top the whole
is
Thanos thing.
this whole storyline of multiverse just is like it's just basically opening the doors to plot holes, and I'm just worried that they're not concerned with like that if they don't manage it well enough that it's gonna like pile up and the things are just not gonna make sense anymore, which they kind of already don't. But
The only thing that I'm worried about the because like don't get me wrong, I love the idea of the multiverse. I love the idea of bringing 3 Spider-Mans into one Spider-Man
Yeah.
Yep.
movie.
same.
I love the idea of maybe bringing a different variant. Now that's the word we use. Variant of a bad guy or a good guy turned bad, or like it does create a lot of possibilities for storytelling. You are right; it does open the possibility for a lot of extra loopholes that we probably don't want, because like all the Infinity Saga, I feel like it's a pretty solid story.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
it ended good, it's tight. I mean, so to speak, tight. But now with this multiverse, with this storyline, this goes back all the way to 2012. So the thing that I'm worried about is that they'll start branching out into all these different multiverse timelines, and it's gonna render the original saga like obsolete. It'll be
Exactly.
like, so everything that happened after the invasion of New York, it doesn't matter now because there's all these different timelines that now we have to care about. So it makes the original timeline like it's just another timeline, right?
I feel like it's just gonna be
So-
like
Yeah.
X-Men, where they do the whole Days of Future Past, rewrite everything, and so now just watch the newer ones. The other ones don't really count.
Just
Yeah.
reset and come back.
No, that's exactly what I'm worried about because, like, and this is one thing I don't like about like comic books is comic books just go off on weird, like they just there's some weird storylines that, in my opinion, are just like flat out dumb that like the comics do. Like when I'm on Instagram, people are like, "Oh, well, it happened in the comics." I want to be like, "Well, that's not a good argument because there's a lot of dumb things that happen in comics," and I'm worried that that's where like Marvel kind of flirting with the idea of sometimes you can just do too much. Like not every idea is a good idea, but this multiverse thing opens up ideas for like I wish I could think of a good example of a comic book like storyline where I was like, that's dumb. Like that should never be a story plot. But like I can't think of anything right now. But like it's like when you're talking about render useless, like think about Iron Man. Like what stops Disney now from cashing in on bringing Iron Man back? Nothing, because now they have multiverse stuff, which is kind of stupid to me because now it just kind of makes that whole thing less emotional and less like, why care about that, end game scene where Iron Man's gone if you're just going to bring him back later? Because that's something that comics do all the time. They bring people back from the dead. They, what if this villain was a good guy? What if the roles were they do all these jump the shark type story plots, and it just gets a little out of hand and gets a little disingenuous, in my opinion.
I do worry about that. I mean, I could imagine seeing Iron Man come back being like a giant thing, like when Captain America wielded the Mjolnir, but
yeah.
Man, like you said,
Jonathan?
Huh?
You mean Jonathan?
I don't. Oh shoot, I don't know that meme.
Oh, you guys don't.
Oh, the McJohn. Are you talking about the Paul Rudd calling?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Have you not seen that game?
I have not.
McJohn.
There's an interview here. I'm gonna make a quick pause, but there's an interview with a bunch of Marvel actors, and they're talking about Mjolnir, and they're like, "Hey, do you know Thor's hammer, right?" They're like, "Yeah," and they're like, "How do you pronounce it?" And everybody's like struggling, and they're like, "Mjolnir, Mjolnir," and then they ask Paul Rudd, and he's like, "Jonathan," and so now I don't call it Mjolnir. I call it Jonathan.
I have to check that out. But
yeah, I'm gonna have to send you a link.
I just imagine that's gonna happen, where they're gonna bring him back, and then, like you said, it's just gonna erase the previous stories it's not gonna have as much impact because now that people watch it, oh yeah, don't worry, he's gonna come back. Don't worry. It's like it's ruining the trilogy, or I guess it's a trilogy, right? The Infinity Saga. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really hope that they don't do that. I hope they do this branch thing where like you get all these like cool things and maybe bring in a couple of things from the timelines, but then close it shut and then just continue with your original timeline.
Mhm.
It's weird to think because I like season 2. Okay, so season 1 just ended. 2021? 2020. Yeah, we're in 2021. We have 3 movies coming out or 4 movies coming out because we have Guardians of the Galaxy volume 3 and we have Thor Love and Thunder. And so we need to see how those movies are going to tie into all of it, but this is like we're talking 2 to 3 years ahead already. And if they're teasing a Loki season 2, I'm willing to bet that they're not going to release that until 2023 or 2024. So I'm like, so what's going to happen in those 4 years? It's
Yeah. I don't know. Unless they're like really fast about it. I mean,
yeah, right. I think season
Yeah.
2 will
yeah, they
be.
probably won't be.
I think they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot and have a movie and a series come out at the same time. So I think they'll just focus on the series first and then the movie comes out.
yeah.
I'll admit
Wait,
though,
you think this is going to be a Loki movie?
no, I mean like all the MCU movies continuing. Like they're not gonna have an MCU movie come out. I guess they did with Black Widow, but I guess that doesn't really count. But because they would want season 2 to be the setup for the movies, and if they come up with a movie and not have season 2 be finished or whatever, or not completed, then it's gonna be confusing, and then you got multiple viewers watching different things when they can't have everyone watch season 2, then they can watch the MCU movies.
Yeah.
From a business standpoint, at least.
I think the next movie now would be Spider-Man, right? Or no, they got Shanghai or whatever.
Shang-Chi?
Shang-Chi,
Oh,
which
yeah,
I think
I
looks
forgot.
good, but
I did watch a
another
promo for that. It
topic.
looks interesting. The Kung Fu
I think it looks
aspect.
fun.
Yeah.
So
Eternals, though? Eesh, I don't know.
yeah.
Oh yeah, and there's Eternals.
Yeah, that one I'm not crazy excited about. That trailer was underwhelming for me.
Wait,
Dang.
you don't think Eternals is going to be a good movie?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the trailer was underwhelming for me. I thought like, and plus I have a little bit, like I said, in the first time I was on, I have a little bit of MCU sickness where there's just a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still gonna watch all this stuff, but it still makes me like this is starting to get a little out of control to keep up.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I wonder what the point of the Eternals is because they're supposed to be beings that have been here since like the very beginning of time, right? And now they're like even at the trailer talking about like events happening after the Avengers and even this guy what's his name? Rob Stark. He's all like maybe I could lead the Avengers. And so I'm like, okay, so they're stepping into something that happened after Endgame. So everything that happened before then wasn't big enough for them to step in. So what is so big that now they're stepping in? And we can't say that it's a multiverse because multiverse is happening in 2012. And Endgame happened in 2019, 2019.
2019.
So I don't like I like the actors in it. I'm excited to see what they do with it, but I am also confused as to why.
No, I I think that's a good point, and it is kind of tough to figure out, you know, where the MCU is going from here on out, especially with this ending of Loki. And again, like, how important is Loki going to be? Because what Gabe said, it's like, is everyone going to be able to be caught up with all 3 seasons of these shows for the next few movies? Because I know for certain that like some of my friends, my family, they're not going to watch these shows, but they'll watch the movies, and it's going to be a little disparaging for people who are like, "Well, I don't want to watch." 3 whole seasons of a show just to understand movies that are coming out.
I know, that's why I
So
worry about the movies where they have to explain all the stuff that are happening in the series. Like people are gonna be like, "Whoa,
which hurts
Wanda's
the people who
some."
did watch.
Yeah,
So you have people who don't wanna watch 3 seasons, but then you have the people who did watch 3 seasons, they have to sit through a movie where they explain it around and be like, "I already know all this," you know? So it's kinda like a lose-lose almost.
that's Disney for you. They want that
Yeah.
moolah.
You know what I'm starting to think though? Um, I am starting to believe that this Loki thing is actually going to be its own separate thing, and it probably will have nothing to do with the movies. And the movies will continue its course, but it will still have like those side notes from the TV show. And the reason I say this is because they've done the same with um um what's it called, the Netflix shows, um
You mean like
Daredevil.
Daredevil and
Oh
Jessica
yeah.
Jones and
Mhm.
stuff?
Yep.
Yeah. So those shows on Netflix, uh what were they called? They're not the Guardians, what
I have no idea, I forgot.
I don't
the
remember.
Defenders. Okay,
Defenders.
so you got the Defenders. They're three different superheroes taking place in New York. They all have their own shows, and then they come together and they insert each other in each other's shows, and then they have the Defenders where it's all of them versus a bad guy. Um, but if you pay attention to at least Daredevil, and actually I think all of them, they all mention everything that happens in the Avengers movies.
Yeah, no,
They
you're
have
right.
Really? I
so
don't
they
know
have
that.
all these mentions, but there's no mention of them in the movies.
The
So you have
forgotten
the sideline
children.
story that's happening at the same time as the movie, but it's not fully connected. And then you have Agents of Shield, which starts off by like, oh, we brought him back from like to life and stuff like that, and they have their own branch, and and they mention it, and they even have they have Nick Fury, they have Maria, um they had that same girl from Thor, what's her name, that was in Loki,
Yeah, I
the
forget her name. So,
whatever her name is. She was in Agents of Shield. So you have all these actors from the MCU coming into Agents of Shield. You have mentions of the accounts of the MCU happening in the Netflix series, but they're not affecting the movies. And
yeah.
so I'm starting to
Interesting.
believe that, and this is like literally just now, I'm starting to believe that maybe this Loki show and now going into the season 2, it just means that they're going to have their own storyline going on the side while the MCU continues on their own timeline.
How
Yeah,
would that
see, I wouldn't have a
work?
problem with that, but the only issue is going back to what I was saying earlier is that Loki is so complicated and they've built it up. They've kind of built dug themselves in a corner where I mean this stuff has to be important to the actual movies because this is
Yeah.
like universe changing stuff. And so like I would like it if Loki is just, you know, within the compounds of Loki. But like at the same time, they can't do all these time traveling stuff and all these multiverse stuff and then also like you know not have it affect actual movie timelines because I mean in my mind you know shouldn't everyone be experiencing these multiple timelines now like now that you know all the just because he talks about how the branches meet each other and they talk to each other and they interact with each other and so
Mhm.
it's like in movies, wouldn't Spider-Man, wouldn't people be experiencing those timelines coming and, you know, clashing with ours? So it's kinda you know, I'd like it to stay in Loki, but it's also it's kinda hard for them to do that when they just said that the whole universe now all these timelines are crashing into each other. So it's kinda hard to say that and then not mention it in
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah, I don't. I'd rather.
So,
So
I agree because now you have an enemy bigger than Thanos, and then you have the MCU movies not
yeah.
ever talk about it, and you know in the background as new bad guys come out in the MCU movies are like, oh, this guy's not as strong as that other guy in a small TV show called Loki. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting.
wait, but I just had a thought though. Because uh the Kong, I don't
Kang,
know why I keep calling him
Kang
Kong
Kong, Kang Kong.
like Genghis Kong. It's Kang Kong. 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 Okay, anyway,
Kang's in Ant-Man,
we're
apparently.
when we're listening to Kong, um, he says that he's a variant from the 31st century.
Yes.
We're in the 21st century, so
Yes.
this is like 100 years later.
Matrix
says that-
vibes.
Oh, I see where we're going with this.
Wait, what did you say, Gabe?
Matrix vibes on that one. That's
Well, I'm just saying, like, he's saying that is when he discovered that
Yeah.
there's multiple timelines and stuff like that, and they started communicating with each other, and that's when everything started like falling apart. So, maybe none of this is happening now.
No,
It's
I
just
agree.
only that
That's
it's
probably
happening
exactly what it is.
in 100 years.
I'm
Now
picking it up.
the funny thing is so, and this is what like I'm trying to figure out, and obviously, hopefully, we'll know this later. But you know, Sylvie kicks what's his name, Loki, back into the TVA, and then Loki goes and finds Mobius and Hunter. Is it Hunter 19 or Hunter 20 or whatever?
Yeah.
And
Beef 19.
they don't even know who he is. And now there's a Khan the Conqueror statue sitting outside
Yeah, that's
instead
right,
of
that's right.
the timekeepers. So what this is telling me is that as soon as that timeline ended and Khan the Conqueror, Khan the He Who Remains or whatever, once they cross that threshold, they actually already had branched into a different timeline, which is why when Sylvie kicked Loki back to the TVA, even though she hadn't killed Kong the Conqueror yet, or He Who Remains yet, that line was already written, which is why when he gets killed, he's like, "I'll see you soon," because by doing that, they're already back to the beginning, but now because there's no control of the timelines, Khan the Conqueror, the actual bad guy, has now taken over that timeline. So they just went back and restarted, and now it's the bad guy who's in charge, which is why Mobius
Mm.
doesn't recognize Loki anymore.
Which
And my head hurts right now.
Yeah,
that was my favorite part of that. Well, not my favorite part of the episode, but I love that ending where like you're just like, oh geez, like this is gone. Like this is terrible because Loki goes there, Mobius doesn't know him, just everything's gone to crap basically. Like not, which is funny because you know I was telling you I wanted things to be resolved in one episode, and it was the opposite of getting resolved. If anything, everything just got a lot worse. And so, no, and I agree. That's actually a really good point about how that's probably how they'll address it in the movies. Is that you know things don't actually start going bad until the 31st century, and so
they're probably
they'll
preventing
probably
it
just
then.
ignore it, you know, in the movies if they can, if things don't actually have consequences till centuries later, you know. So that's a good point.
That's kind of, I don't know how I feel about that, because now if they do take that approach, then as you watch MCU movies, they're like, oh, it's not as bad as what's gonna happen in 31st century. Like it's like watching,
that is a good point.
It's like watching DBZ, and then you're like, oh, you're watching the fight between Frieza, and you're like, not as bad as Cell, and you're like, you're not as, you know, like you're always knowing.
And that's a very good point. And that's the problem with doing this. This is the problem with comic books where, you know, they end up they just try to one up each other over and over and over again, and things starting to get ridiculous. And so that's a good point. That's where I hope the MCU doesn't go. I hope they don't do a Dragon Ball Z thing where it's like the power differentials between the villains is just getting just ridiculous. And by the time you're at like the 5th villain, it's like they all can do the same amount of damage. Like, and not to go off on a tangent on Dragon Ball Z, but like in the very first villain can just destroy the whole planet. So then why are we scared of any other villain after that? If they can all just destroy planets, why is one scarier than the other? You know, it's, you know, so just
wait. Wasn't Piccolo the first bad guy?
Yeah. See,
I don't know Dragon Ball Z all that well, but I know Vegeta can destroy a planet, you know, at the very beginning.
Man.
And it's like, okay, if everyone can destroy planets, then who cares? You know, like they all can do the same amount of damage. It's just kind of just gets out of control a little bit. It gets a little nonsensical.
Do you know if the newer Marvel movies like the Shang-Chi and Eternals, are they going to be like MCU type stuff, or are they their own separate thing? Or are they gonna tie in with the MCU?
I think they're MCU. I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same universe.
It is. I'm wondering if they're like origin movies where they're not that related to the MCU yet. You know what I mean? Like it's
Kind
like
of
they're
like an
trying to
Iron Man
yeah
one, and yeah, no, I'm pretty sure these are going to just be their solo. I mean, I would expect. I mean, there hasn't really been any build up. This is the perfect time to start doing origins.
Brand new
I think
stuff,
that's what the MCU is going for, because they saw the success of Ant-Man and Guardians, where no one knew about these superheroes yet they made movies and made origins, and now those are like two people's favorites. I think that's what they're trying to do now. They're trying to just introduce, now that they've done all those, the classic superheroes, now they're going to introduce kids to, all new ones and sell toys and all that jazz.
Isn't there a plan to restart yet again the Fantastic Four?
I think so.
I heard rumors.
No, it's not a think so. No, for sure. But it's a ways off, because a couple months ago MCU did this whole thing where they just like spewed all the future projects, and they showed little clips and little trailers for everything that has footage, and then for everything else that doesn't have footage, they just showed like the title tags.
Mm-hmm.
And then they showed all the titles and all that, and then the very last thing was just a 4 with a circle. They didn't even have a title for it; just said it had a 4 and a circle, and so that's Fantastic Four. So that is in development, but it's like so far in development they don't even have like a poster or a title tag for it. All they did was do a teaser of the number 4, and so that I would assume is like pretty ways off still.
They have that. I know that they're talking about bringing in the X-Men as well again.
Maybe, I think just Wolverine. I don't know if they could. I think there's still I don't know, because now Fox, right?
I mean, you can't really. Here's the problem and here's the thing, is that a lot of fans are just they don't care if it makes sense. They just want X-Men. But like, here's the thing, is that it wouldn't make sense to have the X-Men in it right now, because the X-Men's whole thing it's a historical stuff. The X-Men have been around since, we know since like forever, but like we know Magneto goes all the way back to World War II. And like it'd be just kind of weird that they haven't mentioned one time this entire MCU about mutants at all. And all of a sudden they're going to bring in mutants.
Yeah.
Even if they do a multiverse thing where all of a sudden they're clashing multiverse, I still think that that's even a weird way to do it. Because
they would have called the Avengers mutants at that point.
Yeah, they wouldn't be mutants. They would just be, and there's just so many superheroes. I mean, I guess that's something that just doesn't make sense in Marvel in general, because I was about to say the world's so used to superheroes now, like why would they care about mutants? But I mean, you could say that about the comic books as well, I guess. But no, in my opinion, I just think it's kind of like too late to put in the X-Men. Like, you've already gone so far. You might, and this is why I kind of wanted the MCU just to kind of reboot after Endgame, like, and not continue, because it would have been a lot better if they just reboot this whole franchise with X-Men and with Spider-Man from the beginning, and use different people. But now it's going to be really confusing, and whatever way they bring in X-Men is going to be weird, because it's most likely just not going to make sense.
Are we going to get to the point where there's so much going on that we're like, I don't care anymore? Like,
I mean, I'm approaching that now, man. That's what I'm telling you.
Here.
I'm watching these shows and I'm enjoying them, but I am approaching I'm already kind of there where I'm like, I'm watching this to be entertained. I'm kind of approaching this how I approach the Star Wars sequels. Not to crap on Star Wars sequels, and I will. but like, I kind of approach it like this, where like, I'm gonna watch this stuff, but if I don't like it or I have a problem with it or it's stupid to me, I'm just gonna be like, whatever. The MCU ended after Endgame. It's like with sequels, I just go, whatever. Star Wars ended after Return of the Jedi. I don't care. I'm just gonna, in my own personal life, that just doesn't, like, sequels don't exist. And that's what I'm just gonna do with the MCU. If they end up going, I'm just gonna pick and choose what I like. But as of right now, I'm sixes on it.
Man, yeah. I mean, if they wanted to not include X-Men, they've already made the connection with Scarlet Witch, and they had the whole connection of what's the fast guy's name? Quicksilver. So it's like they already introduced it, so now there has to be some sort of connection to X-Men because of that. They can't. Isn't like Scarlet Witch like the daughter of Magneto or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
But here's the thing, though, is that you can't. But here's the thing, though, is that you can't all of a sudden just bring Magneto and Wolverine in because they've been around since World War II. Wolverine's been around since like the Civil War. So it's like if you bring in Wolverine and Magneto, you have to explain why you
Yeah.
haven't talked about mutants this entire time, unless they say,
they were on the other side of the
you know,
world.
for the they could say something, and I don't know if this is like comic accurate to people out there who are going to be like, oh no, this isn't, that's not how they did in the comics. But one way they could go around it is that being a mutant was super rare back in the day, where it was like 1 in a million, and so people didn't care about mutants. But like they could do it where now mutants are becoming more and more popular, and now they're getting ostracized and stuff like that. So they could do it that way, which could explain why there's all these old mutants because they were all just like 1 in a million. That's why no one talks about them. But now they're becoming more popular. They could do it that way, but I don't know if fans would like that.
What
that
if
would
that
make some sense to me?
The movie New Mutants? What if that was Marvel's way of trying to introduce X-Men, and then that movie flopped to their like
was that a Marvel
terrible
movie?
attempt at introducing X-Men? It's terrible.
It's an X-Men movie, right?
I saw 2 reviews of the movie, and that was enough for me to say I don't want to watch this.
It's basically as bad as it gets with superhero movies.
Wait, Gabe, I'm sorry. You said it is a Marvel movie?
I think so. From what I
mean, I think though it was distributed by Fox though.
They were trying.
Like I think Disney owns stuff, but like it's not on Disney Plus. It'd be on Disney Plus right now if Disney owned it, and they don't.
I don't know.
I hope that it's just kind of like that Superman horror movie.
Oh.
Like, what if the Superman became evil and it's like the kid and
was it?
Well, here's the problem with the new X-Men movies. That I think they kind of referenced the other X-Men movies, so I don't think it was like a standalone thing. Like I think the mutants are known in that movie. Like I think there's mutants outside of that little psych ward because I think that whole thing was just. I can't remember it.
So they're talking about like the mutants that we now know, like.
No, but I think they mentioned like the school Professor X school. Like they're complaining about being in the psych ward. She's like, oh, but you could always go to that freak school or something like that. And I can't. Don't quote me on that though, because I haven't seen it since it came out, and I didn't like it, and so it's way back in my memory. But I do think they mention X-Men like in some vague reference. So
they might do reboot of the X-Men, like you said, Connor. It's gonna be an X-Men MCU version and then kind of just forget about all the other movies. That's the best thing they could do.
I mean, you could do that. X-Men is its own MCU. There's so many heroes that you could do a standalone Cyclops movie. You could do standalone Wolverine. You could do standalone Magneto. Like, well, X-Men could very well be its own MCU. You don't need to have all the other Marvel superheroes to do a universe. I mean, look at X-Men movies. I mean, like you could do a standalone Storm movie. I mean, there's so many X-Men. The list goes on. You could just.
What if that's their plan though? Like, I know you said that you don't want this to happen, that this would be a bit of a cop out, but what if that is the plan? Is like with the Fantastic Four coming in, with possibly mutants coming in, like maybe they're using this multiverse of madness to say like, well, now we can bring in all these other people, heroes and stuff like that, and then once we have them in, then we shut that timeline and then we're back on track, but now we have all these new characters.
I guess. I mean, they'd have to be coming from different universes and staying in there, but it'd be kind of weird that they would leave their timeline and stick around in this timeline.
That's true.
But
like, I don't know. About it.
I mean, who knows? This is all speculation. I don't care. I mean, better men than us are sitting at Disney headquarters getting paid millions of dollars to figure this out right now, and so I put a little bit of faith in them, but same time.
But yeah, I think you're right though. It's gonna get complicated and so messy that people are gonna tune out. That's the fear.
Going back to Loki for a bit. Can we talk about how good the soundtrack is?
Phenomenal. I downloaded the whole thing literally right before this.
Oh, so you listened to this before? Like, oh, you mean today?
No, like I saved all the songs on my Spotify playlist, and I was like, okay, because
who's the composer?
this is just phenomenal.
Who's the
I
composer?
think the score in episode 5. Yeah, 5, the last one, where old Loki builds Asgard out of like that whole thing. That I think last episode 5 is my favorite for sure.
That was a really good
Great
sequence.
visuals, good
Yeah.
acting, good storytelling, and the music. I can't get over it. It is fantastic.
Not to be a Debbie Downer, but I mean I love the show. I thought it was great acting. I thought it was the score was amazing. The visuals were fantastic. My one gripe, and this is kind of something I had a problem with Falcon and Winter Soldier 2, was the fight scenes were like terrible to me. And that's just kind of something that where you look at Loki, and this is something that TV shows do in general, where they like, they have the hero or the main guy get beat up by people to kind of add conflict and tension to stuff. But like when you watch Loki in like Avengers, the first one, he's like kicking butt left and right, but then like, he's having problem with people in like a grocery store and like he's getting he's getting struck up on by behind and like that there's just a lot of cuts, they're not as fluid choreography. And like and Falcon and the Winter Soldier is even worse because I remember my mom and dad are watching these Marvel movies for the first time. And when they were watching Civil War, I was watching these scenes where Bucky's just kicking butts when he's trying to escape the building, and it's just like awesome, and he's just taking out people. But then, like in Falcon Winter Soldier, like he's like just he can barely handle himself, and so that's something I kind of
That's
had a
true.
problem with in Loki too, where I want to be like, there's a little bit of, and I can understand why they had to
Inconsistency.
do it, but at the same time, it was something that bugged me because every time there was a fight scene, I want to be like, oh man, this is just such a downgrade from the movies.
Budgetary reasons, probably.
That's what I'm saying. Is I understand it's a TV show;
Yeah.
they can only do so much, but like at the same time, I'm like, this is even like this is even like continuity wise good because like Loki's having trouble just taking out the simplest of people.
It was I would say it's forgettable, especially the Sylvia and Loki fight scene. It just looks like they were just doing the standard like slash all the time. And you're like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, cuts, no like one shot takes, nothing. It was just cut.
Did you think it was kind of funny that it ended with yet again a protagonist fighting an equal?
Oh, like Sylvie.
Because like Iron Man 1 fights himself. Now I can't think of any of them, but like a lot of
Captain America, Winter Soldier.
Yeah, like they all fight an equivalent to themselves. And,
but you have to.
I know that this is not like a full-on fight or anything like that, but it's kind of funny because it's like, oh, they get to the disagreement, and then they start fighting, and it's literally Loki versus Loki.
My thinking is that people are getting saturated. I think if Loki was a brand new show, hadn't seen any of the movies, we would be amazed by it because you haven't seen it before. But now that we've seen it, we've seen it in like an Endgame when Captain America literally fights himself.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's part of it.
I agree with Gabe. Like, I think that's just something that's kind of an unfortunate consequence of the golden age of entertainment right now is that I think, everyone, I think just the ease of being able to watch so many shows, like everyone kind of, now the average person knows what good writing is. They know what good action scenes look like. They know what stuff is. And so now movies and TV shows have like a higher standard of acceptance. Or like, there's been times where I watch shows from the 70s or even just shows from like the early 2000s, like on HBO, where everyone loved it when it came out. And now I watch it now and I'm just kind of like, man, this, and this is better. And it's just kind of, I think that's just an unfortunate consequence that happens is that, movies get better over time because people get sick of the same stuff, like the same fight scenes, the same story plots. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing that's happening with Marvel is everyone's kind of getting sick of the same formula of Marvel. And that's why some of these other shows are fun where they kind of step aside from the formula, kind of like this Loki was a step aside from the normal formula of MCU. But then, like you said, there are still those little nuggets that are just kind of like the same old. And it's just kind of interesting. Like, what are we going to think is lazy in like 10 years? Are we going to look back on like some of these shows that we love have been like, wow, I can't believe back in the day we thought this was cool. And at the time it was like
I know,
revolutionary
right?
stuff. Are we gonna think one shot scenes are like really stupid? Because that's like the thing that I think is like the rave right now is doing like action scenes in like one shot and being fluid and not doing a bunch of cuts. But like in 10 years, are people gonna be like, oh my gosh, like enough with the one shot scenes? So it's just
Gimmick.
it's just interesting to think about.
Yeah. No, I'll admit though, Loki, even though, and I don't think the focus was on the fight scenes. It was really to introduce
No.
that new like concept, the new multiverse stuff. And the funny thing was that I was thinking Loki was gonna be my lowest interest, and then Captain Falcon was gonna be my highest interest, and then WandaVision in the middle. And it's actually flipped now. And so Loki,
Mhm.
or at least the one that I liked the most, was actually Loki, and my least favorite was Captain or Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is surprising.
Mhm.
No, I agree 100%. When WandaVision was over, I thought I'm excited for Falcon Winter Soldier. Like, here we go. This is the show that I was actually like
Right?
interested in. And it's crazy how because I was interested in Loki because I was kind of mad when I heard about Loki because I was like, really? Like he died and we're bringing him back again? Like this is getting ridiculous. Like this is like I have no interest in a fourth character arc for Loki. And yeah, it's crazy how my list completely
Yep.
flipped on its head.
Yep.
Do you think it's because we all expected Loki to be so bad that now that it's actually out, we're like, oh,
That's
this
true.
is actually really
That
good. And
could
so like
be.
it just went like
It
That
could be both ways. It
be.
could be that we had too highest expectations for Falcon Winter Soldier and too low of expectation for Loki, and that's why we left disappointed in one and surprised in the other.
I mean, if I could be
I do
objective
like that
about
they
it, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I really like that they're all different as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I wish there were no, I don't. I was gonna say I wish that they were all like filmed in the same type of like cinematography and stuff like that, but I actually appreciate that they're all their own uh shows and that they're filmed
Yeah.
differently. Like WandaVision has a very unique way of filming that I'd never seen before. And it's part of the storytelling of it. I think one of the reasons why Falcon and the Winter Soldier was so meh is because it's just a linear story. It's just getting from point A to point B,
It was a
and
lateral.
there
Yeah.
wasn't any mystery to it. It
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, we knew that this was gonna happen. We're just seeing how, and it wasn't that interesting to begin with.
I think it was
Um,
because Loki introduced something new. WandaVision sort of introduced something new. And then Winter
mhm.
Soldier, nothing. Bad guys were introduced
Yeah,
and then they
Falcon
got
and the
killed.
Winter Soldier was also overdrawn. It was I mean Loki could have been 8 episodes. Think about this. How in the world is Loki 6 episodes, but Falcon and the Winter
Yeah,
Soldier story
seriously.
takes eight
Oh
episodes?
my
You know what
goodness.
I mean? Like that's what's like mind boggling. It's like Falcon and the Winter Soldier is such a just a cookie cutter story. The only thing that was really interesting that I felt that was had like some substance to it was like the racial look on the shield and like how there was a super soldier who was black and the whole time and they kept it under wraps. Like all that was interesting, but and also Bucky's kind of fighting his demons, but I thought there was just I don't know, they kind of went all over the place with that show and I felt like they took way too long. They just drew there wasn't enough substance to justify how long it took them to tell the story.
mhm, I agree.
That is interesting. Yeah.
And you know what's one thing that I did like about Loki, and I don't know if this was intentional because you're talking about how it's only 6 episodes. And I saw this on a TikTok, so but it happened to be true. Every episode has a different color, and they're all based on Infinity Stones.
What? Wait, what?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Interesting.
So
Yeah, because that last one, yeah, because
so
there's the green.
today's episode was very blue. Like if you look at the scenes, there's a lot of blue in it. The one before was really green. The one before, I think it was orange, and then before it was purple. And the first, oh no, the first one was orange. Then we had like, yeah, I think we had red, and then purple,
Oh,
yellow, green, and blue, something
that's
like that.
right. Okay, now,
Uh,
okay.
but it is really interesting. Like I saw that after episode 3, And I was like, that is an interesting point. Like seeing, like you do notice that there's a lot of colors, and they're very strong. And like it's funny because like it made sense because the third episode, when you have the two Lokis, they're looking for this power source, and the color scheme of the episode is purple, which is the color of the Power Stone. And
Oh
Interesting.
man,
That
you look at the
is.
topics of all the other episodes, and they kind of match the stone, the color of the stone.
Let's see.
Um,
Yeah, let's see. Episode 3, Power Stone. When they're on Lamentus, they are surrounded by purple tones. This is the episode where Loki and Sylvie discuss and display their various powers while coping with being powerless to the TVA and the apocalypse. For episode 4, the Mind Stone, has a lot of gold tones, and it's this episode where
mhm.
Mobius and Hunter B-15 come face to face with the mind control and brainwashing the TVA has put them through.
man, this is nuts.
What?
Yeah,
How did I
see?
not pick up
So
on that?
and so it makes me wonder. I'm like, did they plan this from the? I mean, they must have, right? So they said we're gonna write this story.
Hmm.
We're gonna have 6 episodes, each based on one uh Infinity Stone, and that to me is cool.
That is, I like that. That is good. That is the subtle. I like the subtleties of that. This is what I mean
Yeah,
when we
that
talk
is,
about art.
that is because that sounds like something. Because sometimes you get on TikTok and you hear these fan theories, and you're just like, "That's a reach," and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're just looking for something." You know, it's kind of like say, like if you think of yellow cars, you're going to see more yellow cars that day. It's like, well, of course, if you're looking for something, you're going to find it. But that one though is very interesting. That one's very interesting. I love that. That
That
makes
is,
me think. I almost want to watch the show again and be like,
yeah,
man,
that's really good.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it's also one of the reasons why I like how all 3 of us have different color schemes in our background right now.
Let's see. Blue. Let's see. What was my one? You
blue
got
is
the gold
energy or
one.
power, right?
Yours is Mind
Or
Stone,
energy.
Connor. Yours,
No,
Gato is the Power Stone.
yeah, purple's the Power Stone, blue is the Tesseract, which is the
Energy, right? Or
it's not energy, it's something else. What is it?
Infinity Stone colors.
Yeah,
Man,
it's
talk
gold.
about
gold. Like
fans, huh?
what's my like yellow is like the mind stone,
Yeah,
right?
that's the Mind Stone.
Space. Mine is a space tone.
Space, yeah, space.
That's what it is.
Because you can travel anywhere you want with that.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow, that's a good nugget. Wow. Well, I look forward to whatever season 2 is gonna be like. I think the setup was really amazing, especially the cliffhanger ending, seeing that statue. Also curious about
Let's
how
hope
the
that
movie's
we
gonna handle it.
get a Spider-Man trailer soon because it's coming out in 5 months, and we still haven't seen a peep out of anyone except the title. But
Yeah, that's gonna be great. Well, Connor, thanks for joining us, and everyone else, thanks for joining us to the podcast this week. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard, like what we talk about, feel free to like and subscribe and to comment. We do this show every week. We do it live, so there will be technical difficulties, as you will see in our previous episodes of echoiness and stuff like that. But
yeah,
we do this live. We love it. But yes, once again, thanks for watching with us.
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Leave us comments and stuff. And yeah, thanks again, Connor. And
yeah, check them out on the Cinema Fan at the Cinema Fan.
oh, that's right, Cinema Fan on Instagram.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Till next week, everybody. Peace out.
Peace.